Welcome back to American Zarathustra. This is a very, very exciting show that we're having today because we have Hearth of Europa with us today. I would like to welcome with me Katrina. How are you, Katrina?
Yeah, I'm very good, thanks, Donald. Generally been having a little hiatus from the show, but we've got some stories from the earlier streams that we're going to be putting out, and generally just been enjoying what's been a very hot summer.
I know.
I think it's been like that all over Britain.
Oh, it's been hot over here.
It's been absolutely scorching.
Yeah, I'm in the Northeast.
Not used to this, Donald.
Yeah,
not used to this at all.
I know. You know, I like cold weather a little better because you can put layers on. But when it's hot, what do? You know. So let's also welcome your co-host and friend, Lynx in the shadows. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Hey, Donald. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We also have quite good weather these days. It's been a bit more shifting over here in Norway, so somewhat a bit colder, then it gets hot, and then it gets cold and everything. So we're expecting rain and almost 10 degrees Celsius colder next week. So I'm just enjoying the days.
Good for you. Good for you. I would love to make it to Norway one of these days. I know a few people there that I need to visit. So let's say, Katrina, could you tell the audience a little bit about the show that both of you host? It's Hearth of Europa. I believe it's on DLive. Can you give us some more information about it?
So yeah, what we generally do on Hearth of Europa is we discuss folk stories. And occasionally mythology also, we cover that, but mostly we're interested in the stories of the folk tradition. And we sort of link these to what we know historically and what we know about mythology, and we think about the symbolism. And we do that sort of in between playing the recordings of these stories, which we've read out, and sometimes we can put music and sound effects in them and stuff. We have some fun with it. Nice. We have some fun with it, and occasionally we go off on random tangents as well that are completely unrelated. It's all part of the fun.
Awesome. So do you have guests on your show? Or
yes, we have had guests. We've had yourself, Donald, and we've had your co-host on Imperium Art, Nullis, yes. And we have had, most recently, we've had Laura Lee Skyfe, who was Lynx's idea to get on as a guest, and we had a very, very fascinating discussion about Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I really don't know any other show that features folk stories. I think that you both have really captured a very important niche. And I really enjoy your accents as well. Just I have to throw that in there. You both have very lovely voices, so it makes for good storytelling.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Lynx, how did you connect with Katrina to get involved with Hearth of Europa?
Well, it all started last year when I decided to get online within the white well-being community.
Yep.
And accidentally I got quite involved with the British nationalist movement. There isn't much going on in Norway. And through various ways I ended up getting to know Katrina. We were briefly on another show. And then we decided we wanted to do something together, and we're both interested in, folklore, the wisdom from the past and everything. So we thought, okay, folk stories, why not do that?
Yeah.
There is so much to work on. We keep finding more and more and more.
Oh,
so many.
I am a bit linguistically challenged, so I suppose Katrina has an easier job of it. Recording the stories, I do get quite a few mistakes.
Well, Katrina's English is pretty good, I've noticed. So yeah.
Yeah.
It tends to be that way with the native language.
Yeah, oh, there's that.
Yeah. I mean, I speak German, but I don't get a lot of opportunity to use it. I mean, lots of nice people have already translated the Tales of the Brothers Grimm and stuff like that. But, yeah, I do make reference sometimes when there are German tales to original versions and stuff like that.
Yeah, most of the Norwegian stories I translate myself.
Yeah.
By the way, Lynx, your English is excellent, so don't feel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It is.
I would really love to know what are some of the bits of wisdom that you've gotten from being on this show? How has it enriched your life personally? Maybe start with Katrina.
Bits of wisdom that I've gotten from the show.
Yeah.
Talking animal tells you something, probably listen.
Okay.
Don't trust 50-old women. You know, just the usual fairy tale tidbits.
Because
but a lot of wisdom, really, from the show.
So essentially, like common sense folk tales, and
a lot of it seems to be about keeping one's word. That's a very common theme in your Indo-European folk tales. You know, there's a lot of consequences for not keeping one's word.
See, that's very Western too. I mean, I find that in certain other cultures, your word doesn't actually mean anything, and you know, a smile doesn't necessarily mean being friendly or anything. People of different cultures have different ways of establishing trust, and so whereas in the West, I feel like the word is the basis of law, and that's a really essential part of Western civilization. I find that interesting, but
yeah. And you know, we keep seeing recurring sort of themes of, I guess we've discussed this on the show, but we keep seeing the same sort of heroic paths for men and for women as well. And we discussed sort of the feminine and the masculine
fascinating
hero's journey, and we've found the analysis of the feminine hero's journey to, of course, be useful to the two of us. And you know, the sort of giving and self-sacrificing aspects in that have always repeatedly been very interesting, I would say.
Powerful.
And it's one of the things that doesn't really get highlighted that much. You know, the female path is very obscure. The hero's journey is very common in movies and television shows, so basically everyone knows it. But instead of taking the female journey, the women are shown basically female warriors.
Yeah.
And that is really annoying, to be honest. I don't relate to that.
I agree.
And it gives an unrealistic picture of the world, and that's not the point of these tales, I think.
Right.
You know, these themes. So that was one thing I really liked with Laura Lee Scaife's work, that she takes that on in a different way, showing that the female path is very much more than just picking up a sword and fight and miraculously beating all of the men.
Just like in Hollywood, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I really would love to shine a spotlight on, especially because feminism has not completely, but taken over so much of the cultural narrative for women. And yet we've had centuries and centuries of these kinds of stories. What is the mythological process for women going, say, from girls to women, from children to adults, based on the folk stories that you've learned? Katrina, you want to take that one?
Well, it's something we're still trying to work out, really.
Okay.
But definitely the hero's journey for women usually involves, you know, like Laura Lee Seife was talking about, actually, with Eowyn, who wanted to go and fight she ends up doing this, you know, not for glory, but for the sake of her loved ones. And the maturation of girl from girl to women in these tales usually involves, you know, learning to wait, be patient.
Interesting.
You know,
well, there's some
give of oneself, and this is very typical of the female role. I mean, there is the significant period of waiting that is typically involved in the female life cycle, and that is pregnancy.
Sure.
And there are many things that one has to give up doing in pregnancy as well.
It's very heavy transformation. So this all is so beautiful and wonderful to talk about. It's such a critical topic. This is kind of a theme that I really want to have more women on this show, to be dead honest with you. I don't feel like there's enough focus on women in the right-wing sphere or in the white positive sphere specifically. So it's just a joy to have both of you here. And I cannot thank you both enough for the work that you do. I can't emphasize enough for the audience how they should go to your shows and enjoy your shows. Talk about cozy. You guys are the queens of cozy. You know, that you get to listen to you telling these wonderful old stories. And
thank you.
Yeah, we all
try.
Well, you succeed. You do well at it. So it's like I said earlier, it's just such a wonderful niche. Storytelling is such an enormous part of our history, our culture, and then of course today we have storytelling in the form of movies and such. But art and visual art and storytelling cross over tremendously. So this is to have you both on the show in this specific show, obviously, the afternoon at the museum. It's just a hand in glove situation. It's a perfect match. So why don't we scoot over to some artwork then, and let's start having a look at a few things here. So let me do some magic, wave my magic wand here, and change the screen. Alakazam, how do you like that?
Hey!
Wow!
I see the thing.
Yeah, how do you like that? You know,
StreamYard can do this. we work with OBS. A little bit different.
So I forget which one of you asked for this piece particularly.
It was me.
Oh, okay, yeah. And okay, so let's look at it a little bit here. So Newton After Blake, so by Eduardo Palozzi. So let's first look at the Edward Blake picture here. Maybe I'll just zoom in on it like so. Oops, I guess we'll sorry, I had a little. This is going to happen, folks. So be patient a little bit. But I'm going to zoom in on this image here. And so, I'm sorry, William Blake is a fabulous British artist. I'm a big fan of his work. There's a certain kind of, like, I don't know how to describe it, a symbolism to his work that's very meaningful. But anyway, here we have Blake's piece here. And it looks like some sort of masonry or some kind of like architectural design happening, and then we have this sculpture up here, which I'll show you this sculpture from different points of view, but you can see it's essentially the painting in sculptural form, and then again here's the same image from a different angle. And so would you like to comment a little bit on this as we go?
So yes, I would like to comment really, I think initially on the original painting.
Oh, okay. Let's go back.
Because I do like that. I do like that.
Why do you like it?
Well, mostly because initially the way it strikes me with the color palette.
Okay.
I really like the bluey and greeny tones in it, and instantly, straight off, you can tell that I think it's got this aquatic feel to it. I definitely get the impression that that's a rock at the bottom of the sea, and all the corals and the jellyfish type shapes at the bottom there. But I like it because it's sort of, from reading about the context of the painting as well, it definitely evokes immediately Newton's sense of isolation, or that the fact that, well, Newton doesn't seem to be aware that he is isolated. He's too absorbed in whatever he's doing down there on that scroll. But he is facing away from all of this natural beauty behind him. And he's just sort of absorbed in his scroll, and he's orientated towards sort of blank nothingness. And there is nothing actually on his scroll. He's pointing at something, but there's nothing on his scroll. There's just the reflection.
So what would you say? What's your interpretation of this? Like, if you had to give it a title, what would you title this piece?
I mean, if I had to give it a title, hadn't thought about that. I think if I had to give it a title,
it's tough.
I don't know.
Well, maybe let me comment a little bit on it as well, and let's get Lynx's opinions as well. So,
something to do with isolation.
Isolation, certainly. So you bring up some fascinating points on this, because I didn't really consider this, but the way that he is, in a sense, turned away from nature, and that he's using these man-made tools of measurement. So in a sense, that it says something about the nature of man, that we in some way impose order on nature, that we use systems of math, architecture, all these things that we do to create civilization, right, out of nature. So it's fascinating in some sense that, in a sense, he's almost like an outgrowth of that rock. You know, he's an outgrowth of nature. And then he then say science, arts, architecture, etc., mathematics, etc. These are outgrowths of humanity. So it's almost a kind of a left to right progress of nature to civilization. This is kind of the meaning that I'm fabricating out of the information that I have. What do you think, Lynx?
Well, I could probably start with what title I would give it. I might give it Folded Unfolded.
Oh, very clever. Why is that?
Well, he is folded, so to speak. You know, he's leaning, folding himself together.
Clever.
And he is unfolding the scroll. So he is sort of turning inside himself, as Katrina said, and the scroll had me actually thinking of a theme we see quite a bit in folk stories, with napkins, that when you unfold them and say a magic word, then all abundance come from it. So when he is unfolding the scroll, the abundance of what he has found within himself can be brought out to the world.
Marvelous, marvelous. See, this is what this show is all about. That's just a perfect example of what I hope this show will do, is allow the audience to see the process of interacting with art. You know, art is not this dead subject that is, you know, collecting dust in a museum. We bring life to it, and we engage some other side of ourselves and each other through this process of loving and enjoying art and talking about it. So I couldn't have really thought of those things on my own, you know, but when we sort of bring our perspectives together, it's quite an interesting thing. We manufacture meaning together, and it's quite a beautiful cultural experience, I think.
Absolutely.
Art is both subjective and objective at the same time.
Very powerful statement.
So it's I would say exactly at the midpoint, you know, because you can objectively say what is beautiful art.
Okay.
But the meaning of it might be quite subjective, and even with the theme and everything. So it interacts with both sides, and that is so fascinating.
Indeed. So as an art teacher, I would frequently incorporate art critique into my class, and I took all these kinds of like high level university thinking and brought it down into something simple, whereby I tell my students, you just have two questions. One is, what is it? You know, describe and explain the thing, the art object itself, in as much detail as you can. And that could include knowing the history of the artist, the medium, the symbolism, and maybe mythology. There could be many, many things, including, say, like, what is he holding in his hand? What is that object? What does it do? What's the function of it? Does it symbolize something? You know, is there a Freemason symbolism going on here? Is that, you know, etc. And then getting all of those facts down, which are objective truths, and then going to the second question, which is, do you like it? So I find that interesting to take that approach, and then maybe look at this piece. So this is art about art. I find that's a kind of a fascinating approach. So
yeah.
let's talk a little bit about, what is it? Like, what do we see here? It's say a sculptural replication of a William Blake painting. But there's something about the man here. He's not sitting on a rock. Everything's sort of geometricized. He looks robotic. I would almost even say, like,
he's got bolts.
Yeah. He almost looks like he's constructed in some way. Like
he's got some sort of goggles.
Yes, sort of robotic in some regard.
I would go so far to say that it's not a human. It's a robot or a doll or something.
Wow.
It's basically not a human. It is a replica of a human.
Wow. That's kind of heavy, because I personally, you know, we're all very deeply concerned with the onset of transhumanism and, you know, human computer interface and the dehumanization of our people through globalization and all that entails. So to me, you know, in light of that and what you just said and this whole discussion, this piece really is kind of frightening in that regard. But I don't know, let's kind of compare the two. We have this, it's very organic. It has almost like a Greco-Roman kind of style, even though it's somewhat flat. The color, etc., it's very rich. And then here you have this extremely metallic kind of, I don't know, it's interesting. Let me ask Katrina, what are your thoughts on this piece?
So this piece is sort of Palozzi, actually, as I know of it, putting himself in the self-portrait as a naked Newton, measuring the universe with his dividers, you know.
The artist, you're referring to the artist here, correct?
Yeah. So Palozzi's put himself in the place of Newton in the original painting.
Why would you do that?
Well, the original painting seems to be a, well, can I mention what it's called, the original painting?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the original painting is called Newton, Personification of Man Limited by Reason.
I'm sorry. You click on something accidentally, and that's what happened. I apologize. One more time. Go ahead.
So Newton, Personification of Man Limited by Reason. That's the original painting.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
And so that title, I think, makes it very clear what the piece is intended to mean. You know, the turning away from nature, the sort of inward-looking rejection of natural beauty in favor of pure mechanics and reason. Blake is very critical of that, and in fact, there's some context surrounding that and things that Blake has said. He was known to have said that art is the tree of life and science is the tree of death.
Whoa. little biased.
He did not like science. He must have gotten some bad grades at school or something. He included Newton in his infernal trilogy of people, along with Francis Bacon and John Locke.
Wow. Wow.
He did not like all of that rationalism stuff. In fact, he was a very spiritual man. He claimed to have had like visions of Christ and apostles at Westminster Abbey.
This is one of the things I love about Blake is the spiritualism of his work, how he takes his spiritual traditions and then makes his own iconography out of it, his own language. That's quite a lot to look at. But now looking at the sculptor's interpretation here, and then here's another aspect that seems to be inside this park here.
It is. There's a few of them. I think there's a few of them around, and he's titled one of these pieces "Master of the Universe."
Oh boy. Okay.
So that gives me an indication that if you didn't know the title of the piece, you'd look at it and think, that's quite... It seems quite disturbing, you know?
Yeah, and grandiose as well. But I in a sense...
Yeah, because he's put himself as Newton. Already I'm not liking this guy.
It's hard
too
to
much.
say. Well, like, you know, does this artist align with Blake's view on science? Is he criticizing it? Is he showing humanity as machines?
I think he seems to have the opposite view, because if Blake is trying to be critical of Newton, he's then going and calling this Master of the Universe. And he sort of seems to be glorifying this sort of merging of arts and science and you know, everything being rational and mathematical, because he's put himself, the artist, as the scientist.
Fascinating. In some way, well, I mean, the arts is art a science? You know, I mean, that's an interesting question. That's a very fresh question. It's something we haven't. I've never heard anybody heard. I've never heard anybody.
Probably scientifically defined parameters for ratios and stuff that look good to humans, but we also cannot, on a rational level, say why they would do.
Well, Lynx, what are your impressions of this conversation so far?
Well, looking back at the second sculpture, then you see that the mechanical stuff has been divided into many smaller pieces. And that really takes my mind to how today everything is supposed to be divided, basically. You know, you have this group and this group, and it's all supposed to be scientific. And
this doesn't look like a healthy individual, you know.
No, definitely not.
Natural individual,
and the face seems to have morphed into something a bit more hippie-ish, I would say, with the expression and everything. Because in the top sculpture, I think the goggles reminds me more of a welder's goggles.
Oh, okay. Tough to say. This photo doesn't make it very clear.
He's sort of left the seams of the construction of the sculpture visible.
Right.
In one of them.
Now,
which is an interesting choice.
There's something we were talking about earlier before the show started, that an impression I had, or an interpretation I had, is that this reminds me of futurism, the style of futurism, which Italian futurism, which is associated with the time of Italian fascism. And if anyone is familiar with the style of futurism, it's obsessed with the progress, development of machines in society, and it has this sort of like a positive futuristic view of man and machine. So, you know, granted, we're the future of this people from the past, and you know, and so maybe we see that differently. But I think at the time it was considered sort of a beautiful new mutation of humanity. And I mean, I'm taking a certain historic spin on the interpretation of this piece by adding that. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh, I'd just like to sort of say it's funny that someone in the chat should mention the toilet, because actually I heard a theory to the effect that yes, in Blake's original piece it was kind of supposed to be mocking Newton by making him look like he was sitting on the bidet. It is a bit of a toilet shape.
Okay. Wow, that's fascinating. See, there you go. So that goes back to my original question of what is it? So if somebody knew the history of the piece and they knew these kind of these sort of ideas, then it informs you better. You know really what you're looking at by the intention of the artist.
But yeah, I guess it's done its job there, because it has naturally occurred to someone to think of this.
And also with the toilet, what from many is considered the starting point of modernistic art is when that guy in France took a toilet and put it in an exhibition.
Oh, you're talking about
I always forget his name.
Marcel Duchamp. He put a urinal in a show, and he wrote the name R. Mutt. That's like from the cartoon Mutt and Jeff on it, and it's I think there's some discussion about, was he just sort of kind of flipping the bird to the art institution or the art world by doing that, or was he a genius in some way? And the beginning of postmodernism, where this urinal is in the shape of a face, in terms of the way it looks. It's kind of silly, and is there a sense of humor to it? I think we're talking about the movement Dada. So Dada is a kind of like I guess an offshoot of surrealism. It's the art of the absurd, the art of the absurd. So this is a time in Western history when you've got World War I and World War II and all these new changes, in technologies, psychology was created. There's just so much happening in Europe at the time that, the art world was kind of upset by it in some way. But let's switch over to this piece here. Katrina, did you request this one as well?
No, I think that was Lynx's.
Oh, Lynx, okay.
Yeah, this is mine.
All right, Lynx. Tell us about this piece. Why do you want to look at it?
Well, it's I'm not quite sure why, but it is one of my all-time favorites. I came across it first time when I was about 17, I think. I did art classes in high school.
Okay.
And I was just searching away and came across that one. It is the Dance de la Nymphs or something, the Dance of the Nymphs. Yes. And Koro, the artist himself is quite interesting because it's sort of a midpoint between the classical paintings that had a lot of mythology in them. And the landscape paintings that ended up birthing the Impressionist movement. And one critic of him lamented that he always put nymphs in his painting. He said if he didn't do that, I would actually like them.
Oh.
So it seems he had a thing for nymphs, which I sort of do too. So cool. It sort of takes my mind to going back to nature, getting back in touch with nature.
Beautiful.
And enjoying life, though not, of course, in the more depraved way that many do today.
Yeah, I clearly understand. I think this, in some sense, is more pure. I wouldn't say naive exactly, but there's something maybe childlike about the joy in it. The the nymph and the satyr are sort of a classic theme in Western art and mythology. And I think it's as it's as I don't know how to phrase this delicately, but it's as adult as you want to think of it, I suppose, I guess. I prefer to take maybe a lighter approach to this, and part of why I think is just the delicate brushwork in here and the use of this high contrast light, the negative spaces in between the trees. It's the joy of painting. Literally, look at these marvelous patches of green light on the down here. Sort of in contrast to the shadows. It's it's a delightful piece. The piece itself dances.
Yeah, there is so much joy in it, I think. So I think that was one of the reasons why I liked it. So and you're kind of taken to a different world, sort of Narnia-like or something.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm getting to see the picture because that plugs in with your interest in storytelling and mythology, right? So Katrina, what's your impression of this piece?
Well, I think it kind of looks like the trees sort of border them, and particularly they seem to form an arch over two sort of central figures to whom the eye is drawn. Really, they seem to be performing for some sort of audience there, and it very much looks like the light is coming right down on this clearing. It's almost like a spotlight there.
Yeah,
it definitely looks like nature just sort of made a set, like a play.
Right,
set.
right. What I would love to see in here would be some musicians, maybe. Maybe if there were some sort of a little platform, just to give it a stronger sense of whimsy and flow and music. That it would make a little more sense with them dancing as they are.
Maybe nymphs just dance to no music. That seems like something nymphs would do.
That could be singing. That I'm sure that's a possibility.
I'm not sure if nymphs are walking anywhere more than dancing into places. So they seem to just be bouncing around, so to speak.
Just delightfully, huh? So
yeah.
That's marvelous. So these are, okay, so for example, there's more work here that we can look at. I'm trying to see if would you ladies like to just browse around, or are there specific art movements that you're interested in? Wiki art is pretty much got it all. I had already pulled up something on symbolism. If maybe we and here are different artists. This is funny because this piece right here is a very famous meme. It's like, sorry, death, not now, I'm painting, like the idea of like, sorry, I can't go with you right now. I have to finish this painting here. It's quite marvelous. But yeah, so this is the idea of afternoon at the museum, is that we can just stroll about. Are there any specific art movements that you ladies are interested in?
Well, I do prefer the older stuff. Up to the 1800s. Then it started to slope off for me, and basically from what's his name? The Spanish one.
Picasso?
Yeah. Basically from him, I usually just turn off.
I see. Yeah. What is it about Picasso's work that turns you off?
Dehumanization again. I have to admit I do prefer the more realistic pieces. it doesn't have to be a real place. I doubt Koro saw that piece of wood for himself. And, one of the more famous Norwegian ones are
Mm-hmm.
Tidemann and Gude. And one of the more famous paintings is from the Hardanger Fjord, and that's not an actual place. It is a composite of several places that he just combined
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on the canvas. So it doesn't have to be a real place, so to speak.
Mm.
But I do prefer it that is more realistic than
Okay.
oh, what's the word?
Like a modernism or postmodernism. Is that what you're referring?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's look at some new work here then. So this piece right here by Caspar David Friedrich is something that's been memed a lot in the white positive identitarian movement for years.
I
I've
have seen it, yes.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel. Let's back up a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about what it is that we're looking at. So, the art movement known as Romanticism. Romanticism, also the Romantic era or the Romantic period, was an artistic, literary, musical, and intellectual movement that originated in Europe toward the end of the 18th century, and in most areas was at its peak in the approximate period between 1800 and 1850. Romanticism was characterized by its emphasis on on emotion and individualism, as well as glorification of all the past and nature, preferring the medieval rather than the classical. It was partly a reaction to the Industrial Revolution. Now, I was talking about fascism being kind of in love with or fascinated with the Industrial Revolution. The aristocratic social and political norms of the Age of Enlightenment, and the scientific rationalization of nature. That kind of echoes our discussion on Blake a bit there. All components of modernity. It was embodied most strongly in the visual arts, music, and literature, but had a major impact on historiography, education, and the natural sciences. It had a significant and complex effect on politics, and while for much of the Romantic period it was associated with liberalism and radicalism. I guess I could go on and on here. I don't want to read a whole book to you here, but I think we're at least gives us some sense of what's going on here. So here we are, The Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog, 1818, Caspar David Friedrich. Would sound much better if I could say it with a cool Austrian accent or something. But let me just start off like, okay, this piece has, how do I say, a certain type of symmetry to it, where all lines are leading towards him. So you have these kind of mountains pointing towards him. You have this this dark rock area that, as a kind of triangle points up to him. Even this mountain in the background seems to point to him. So it's kind of man as the center of the universe or the center of nature per se. But yet at the same time, there's this intense loneliness to this piece, as I feel, and almost a sense of man versus nature in some way. It's highly contemplative, but at the same time sublime. You have this. This is really almost Oriental, the way that he has these cloud formations coming and going in and out of these mountains. It would be really interesting to know if Caspar David Friedrich had access to Chinese landscape painting, but I'll set that aside for now. I don't know. As I see this piece here, it does kind of echo the conversation we were having before about Newton, and man turning his back on nature, and the science as man's domination of nature. So, Katrina, what are your thoughts on this piece here?
Well, the first thing I think when I look at it is he seems lonely because he seems far above everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's looking down on the world.
Sort of a.
And he doesn't seem like. He seems like he's wondering whether it's worth actually going back down.
I have to say, thus spoke Zarathustra right now, because that you know, it's just the perfect time to say that. You know, the man who is the Ubermensch, the man who's above men, you know, and between man and God, if you will. What about sort of the technical aspects of the painting? How does that work? The composition, the color, etc. How does that work to create meaning for you, Katrina?
Well, I think the sort of way he's done the sky and the clouds, like you say, now that you say it, does remind you of the sort of the Chinese work from what I've seen of that. But the clouds sort of serve to make everything else look kind of insubstantial.
Fascinating.
Like the landscapes and the mountains look just kind of miragey. Like the most real thing is the outcrop of rock and the man sort of standing on it.
In the foreground, right.
And you've got something suspiciously sort of square shaped in the background. Like it looks very rectangular.
Are you referring to this kind of this mountain type shape, I would say? But that doesn't really seem so natural to, like, say,
no,
the Bavarian landscape, you know.
It looks like a tower or something. It looks like buildings or something.
Maybe
it looks like civilization very far off.
Should we paint the Eye of Sauron right here?
Yeah, like that would just do it. Do it. Yes, I mean that. Needs an Eye of Sauron. Agree. And what else do I notice? Is that man ginger?
Yes.
He looks ginger.
Yes, I'd say he's ginger. And let's just tip our hat to Jack White in the audience. He is our resident ginger, and my grandma is.
He is a lone ginger standing far above the world.
Standing far above the world. Perhaps that is Jack White on the mountaintop. You know, we really don't know. But
with the coat and the cane, gone mountain walking in style.
You know, if he had a banjo, it would be hands down Jack White, no doubt. So, Lynx, let's hear your thoughts on this piece.
Well, one of the first things I noticed is, as I say, all lines point to him, except for the topmost clouds. They point towards the sky. And so they point towards God. As for what he's contemplating, I'm not sure if he's gone up the mountain and is looking down at the world, or if he's gone up the mountain and is looking at the unknown. With what he knows is behind him. That square in the background that Katrina pointed to, that definitely takes my mind to a castle. So, you know, it doesn't seem so natural a form.
You know, you're right. That could potentially be, say, the ruins of an old castle. That's an excellent interpretation. Something just struck me about that is that it kind of echoes the figure right there. Do you see how it's on parallel right with his head there, right? And it's a little larger than his head, but even the slope of his shoulders and the slope of the base of the mountain, it's quite fascinating that I've never noticed that in the years that I've known and loved this painting. So perhaps it creates a bit of rhythm, maybe, or it's a counter.
Perhaps he's looking at himself in the future. And where he's heading towards.
Very interpretive. That's beautiful. So that's exactly the point of this show is us pulling out the meaning from our hearts and our minds through the vehicle of art. And it's magical. This is, in a sense, the magic of art. So it's quite beautiful.
one of the things I love of it is that you can see a painting 1,000 times, and the next time you see it, you notice something you've never noticed before.
That's great.
So, it can still bring surprises, and what you see can
Right.
get you down a whole new path of thinking. So,
Right. Right. It's quite marvelous. And I think honestly, I wouldn't be able to do, or we wouldn't really be able to do that without each other. There's something about talking to each other about these things and getting each other's ideas, because we all bring something to the discussion, a different type of mentality, a different type of interpretation. Yes.
well, we're not an island, as they say. We have to nudge and push each other. So you can't always stand alone as the man in the
I mean,
painting.
the idea of the individual is kind of a little ridiculous because we even define ourselves, like everything that we are, by reference to structures of society or in relation to other people. Like, try describing yourself in any great detail without reference to social constructs or other people. You really can't.
That takes my mind to, in particular, the monolith by Vigeland, a sculpture in Oslo.
Yes.
Because that is basically a lot of people mushed together. So they are one mass. They are no longer individual, which is the complete opposite.
Fascinating. Yeah. And there's so much to talk about, so much art to look at. This, after I did the first show with Hearth, Jayla Dark, and Olivia Key, people kept saying, when's the next one? When's the next one? And I just kind of thought it'd be fun to try it out. And so now that, right now we've got 32 people watching and a lively chat room. People are craving discussion on art. They're craving connection with our culture, our history. We, in this postmodern globalist time, are atomized and sort of bastardized. We're cut off from who we are, and this is one of the pathways back. So I thank you so much for joining me and bringing everything that you have, and I think that you both have tremendous amounts of knowledge to offer.
Thank you for having us. It's an honor, and I do think our realm is a bit heavy on the political side.
Yeah.
And ideological side. I do think we need to broaden our perspective with art and stories that we do, other sorts of art and everything. So we have to play a symphony, as I say. We can't just have a melody of two tunes.
Wow. Beautifully said.
The two notes. We have to play a full symphony.
That's very charming. That's very lovely. So let's look at this piece. This piece is called The Nightmare. So the mare, or the horse, is over here. This is the origin of the word nightmare, is this painting. So I just happened to stumble across it. I thought it might make an interesting topic for discussion. I believe
we do know it.
Yeah, I believe this is closer to the original. Sometimes, it helps to kind of brighten it up a little bit to see it better. But wow, there's a lot of literature in this piece right here. I feel as if this is like, say, a scene from a movie right here. Maybe a film still of some kind. But
nightmare in Norwegian is mareritt, which is basically the literal translation would be being ridden by a mare. So.
Oh, okay. Fascinating. I don't know what the connection is, like the linguistic connection between these things. Perhaps the word nightmare existed before this painting, but I don't know. Maybe I'm off.
I think it has for quite some time.
Oh, okay.
existed. I mean, there's several similar sort of words. A mort and a muraua are what it's sort of called in Germany.
So
And
what is?
Yeah, there's a Nachtmerrie in Holland as well.
Oh, okay, so there it is. So how about this piece? Let me break this down a little bit, so sort of be the art teacher here. So first off, it's a very strong impression of this female figure. Let's talk about the technical qualities of this, though. That very, very high contrast of the white against a dark background. The balance is a little bit odd with this piece because you have sort of like the bottom half compared to the top, where you have light versus dark. You have this really odd looking, I don't know, troll or gnome or evil spirit, resting on top of this woman, and it appears to be his shadow over here, which makes it even kind of more ominous. The fact that he's staring right at the viewer, I find, I don't know what I feel about that. I feel like it makes the painting a little more self-conscious, kind of like I don't know if that is more horrifying to some people, or if in fact it actually takes away from the painting. But then you have this extremely weird looking kind of hell horse, with these bulging white eyes emerging from behind these the red drapes. What does it mean? I mean, we can certainly, I think that there's probably interpretations that are appropriate for the day, symbolism of its time or something or other. But look at the rhythm of these cloths, like this cloth here, and then you have that same rhythm sort of shape here. The flow of her body, the way that it's hanging off the bed, is mimicked by the rhythm of this red cloth here, and then again in the leg of the table. So there's a lot of movement in this painting that makes it lovely and lyrical, I would say almost musical in a strange way. It's an odd painting. I'm not so sure I find it terrifying. I think that the horse is maybe the most terrifying thing. It's emerging out of these curtains here for some reason, that there's something about that seems very ominous to me, like something bad is going to happen here. Night terrors, people not being able to breathe or move. They say that they feel as if they feel heavy, that something is sitting on their chest. I think that adds to the interpretation of the piece here. And would any of you like to chime in? Katrina?
We did actually do a stream about dreams, and I think we did actually use this picture for the stories about the mart. And the horse, I haven't actually heard of marts appearing as horses, but they can ride your horses during the night, and the next morning they're exhausted.
This is a kind of mythology?
Yes.
Wow. Can you tell me the story a little bit? Maybe that will help to bring meaning.
Well, there's not so much of a singular story about the mart or the muraua, but they do creep up on a sleeping person's body from below, first feeling the weight on your feet, then in your stomach, and then finally on your chest, and then you can't move a muscle.
Right.
And if you think you know who the person, because these can be ordinary people, either a man or a woman, but only a person born on a Sunday can be a muraua. And be careful of people with monobrows. They're murauas, apparently.
Unibrows is what we call it, but yeah.
I'm born on a Sunday.
Oh, wow.
Do you have a monobrow?
So, yeah.
I do not have a monobrow.
Thank God.
Oh, good.
Nice.
I swear to God.
Okay, good. All right, we'll take your word for that. But as far as like the look of the piece, like how does it strike you?
So I guess Yeah, this thing that is sitting on her chest does seem to be looking at the viewer like they've walked into the room and just sitting there challenging the viewer to, well, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. He
And
seems to own the space, right?
she's like this very pure white, you know, she's very much in a damsel in distress pose as well.
Right.
She has swooned. That's what I think she's done.
I was gonna
She seems
ask.
to have swooned.
Right. I don't know if I'm just adding this to, through my own mind, but this just seems like there's something sexual about this painting. And I don't know if am I alone in that thinking, or does it come across?
No, I can see what you mean. I can see what you mean, definitely. It seems like there's something very sort of rapacious about the figures sort of coming in on her, like they're defiling something pure.
Right. It's not good. It's not obviously
No.
romantic. I don't mean it in that way. But I don't know.
No, I get you.
Right. It's just, I don't know what it, perhaps it's the bed. It's the way that she's draped in some sense. It's very fluid, kind of feminine in a way. But this guy just gets creepier and creepier the more that I look at this painting. And it almost, his face seems to say, "You're next." I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
I do see the sexual aspect that you're talking about, with her dress being so tightly following her body shape.
There you go.
So she's kind of naked, even though she is covered.
Right.
And of course, lying on a day bed.
Okay.
That definitely takes the mind to certain places, and at the same time she is falling.
Yeah.
With her upper body and arms and everything, she is literally upside down. So
she's got her neck very exposed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's right sort of there. Just it's a very vulnerable position to be in. That thing looks like it could just rip her throat out.
Right. It's very psychological. This piece is very, very engaging. I think that it's a great topic for discussion. There's a lot. I'm really a fan of romanticism and symbolism. I like, artwork that is, I don't want to say fantasy, but I would say that it's in another world. It's imaginary.
People are mentioning the daybed and a certain product derived from poppies.
Oh, fascinating.
In the chat.
Oh, fascinating. Because there were some bottles on the table, and I was wondering if that was perfume.
Well, there was in the Victorian times, I think, a big problem with people being hooked.
Oh, yeah.
On opium, basically. I think we're allowed to say that word on YouTube, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I think so. And not only that, but opium was basically the daycare system of working class women.
Is that so?
So they used that to keep their kids in check.
Oh boy!
While they were working, because they didn't have any place to place them. So
that's not good. That children can have severe, how do I say, just mental problems from being on these kinds of drugs. They're certainly not meant to do that.
Yes.
But this is an older time in history, and people not knowing things. So,
well, we still over-medicate children today, but let's not get into that.
Right. There's a lot to say. So, this I think is a fabulous piece of, say, symbolist romantic art per se. I don't know. I didn't read the blurb that goes. Let's see if we can. Tiresias foretells the future of Odysseus. So I'm not the expert on mythology. I don't know if you know the story of Odysseus at all, or you could speak to that. But I find this as a work of art very stimulating, very visually engaging. I'm going to zoom in just a bit on some aspects. So what makes it so engaging is the use of the art elements, the art principles. So, you know, it's just like music or poetry or acting. How does somebody act out the lines? You know, it's just a script. Well, do they scream and cry, or do they whisper? You know, the way you deliver your lines, that's the art, right? And in this case, we have these very, very dark earth tones. It's almost black and white in a sense, and you have a strong sense of atmospheric, what's the word? Atmospheric perspective, where things that are farther away are dim, kind of like dimmer, if you will, and then you have these like strangely highlighted areas here with like there's a backlighting, if you will, that's coming out, and these sort of spirits flying through the air. There's something very serious going on here, you know, and then you've got this odd wise man, you know, pointing cryptically to this kind of warrior. I don't quite know what's the story or what's going on here, but it does seem ominous. So it conveys that feeling. Katrina, do you want to comment a little bit on this one? Or Lynx?
So yeah, I haven't actually much looked into this story, but it does seem like Tiresias was a prophet of Apollo and was clairvoyant.
Wow.
And got transformed into a woman for like 7 years.
Oh God.
And sort of in the Odyssey, and Odysseus is calling out the spirits of the dead.
Okay. That's perhaps what
this guy's already dead.
Maybe those are the spirits floating in the background.
This guy's already dead.
Oh, I see.
Tiresias, who was transformed into a woman.
So he's in the underworld, per se.
Yeah, he's in the underworld. He's come up to Odysseus and recognizes him, calls him by name, and
tells his future.
Yeah, tells his future, and I don't know exactly I haven't read the Odyssey yet.
Right.
On my to-do list.
There you go. That's perhaps a good one.
I'm reading it now.
Right. During this show, fascinating. You're a fast reader. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, so that's
a bit above my.
But something about he has to drink the blood of sacrifice.
Yeah.
Or the ghost of his mother has to drink the blood of sacrifice before she can see her son again.
Wow.
But again, you know, we're learning as we go. Really, with the show and mythology.
Sure.
And we're finding a lot of folklore and just like researching it every week, and so we're always coming across myths that we're not exactly familiar with and getting to know them. Not teaching much of this stuff in school.
Right, I know. Sadly.
No, they don't. I have sort of started a series on the channel with Greek mythology. It's a retelling of the old myths from the 1800s by Jean Lang that I've used in quite a few shows. So I have Orpheus, Narcissus, and Echo. And I think at least one or two more, and more coming up. So some of the myths I don't really know that well. I might have heard some of them as a child, but as I've grown up, it's sort of you know, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
So I don't really remember it.
Right. Well, it's a very, very rich world of meaning and history and transformation, because I think that mythology is always, you know, in a sense, it's our guide to this life and the next, and that there's something profound about it. It goes beyond psychology. It's kind of deeper into the consciousness, subconscious of mankind in some way. You know, since all cultures have mythology, you know.
I would. One of the things I see mostly in our folk tales is finding your courage, no matter what the task is,
Yes.
and perseverance. You know, not give up and everything, which is somewhat of in a contrast to the Greek myths, which is always not always, but very often very tragic. So.
Yeah, that's a rough one. Yeah. Well, this has been an extraordinary hour with you two ladies. I'm extremely happy that you joined me today. And I really think we could do this probably many more times and just produce strands of gold, because the way we interact, the chemistry that we have between your knowledge on mythology and folklore, my knowledge of the arts, and then these sort of online resources, it's quite exciting. So I usually try to wrap it up about an hour. Any closing thoughts? Can you tell people where to find your show, Hearth of Europa?
Sure. Yeah, you can find us on DLife, Hearth of Europa. You can find us on YouTube. We also have an Odyssey, and we are on Telegram as well. We have a channel, and we have a chat room group now.
Great.
As well, which is pretty much just for any ancient history, folklore, things that we've discussed on the show. That's the type of thing that we would discuss in there.
Awesome. So I guess I would recommend that people go to
strictly like a no black pill, no politics kind of space. It's for, like, you know, geek out,
having a break.
If you want to do that, yeah.
You know, take a break from all the politics.
Yeah, we're saturated.
Yeah, we are on Twitter and on GAM as well.
Okay.
And for all our links, we do have a campsite bio.
Yes, they're quite handy.
With all of our links.
Is it like a link tree? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that is a link tree. It is in our in our description on Twitter.
Yeah, don't worry. It's in our bios on most accounts. Yeah,
I'll get the links to the audience for sure. So once again, I'm extremely grateful, and I especially want to thank the people who joined us today. The 33 people that are watching the show right now.
33.
Yeah,
that is a master number.
Oh, there you go. It's a mystical number. And it fits the whole mood of this whole show. I think we're tapping into something with, you know, going back into the arts and mythology, interpreting it, bringing all our different knowledge bases to the discussion. It's exciting. And people in the chat have been bringing up a lot of different topics and points to help out with the overall understanding of what we're doing here. So once again, thank you to everybody. It's been a joy. I just want to quickly say that today I'm closing my bid on my artwork for, I've been posting this on Twitter. The bidding is at $300 right now. If you'd like to check out the artwork that I'm talking about, it's on Twitter. And I'll tell you what, I'll pull it up right now if I can. And what I'm going to try to do is more art auctions. I'm essentially banned for life on eBay because I'm a part of the white positive movement. And so that's that really stinks. I was hoping to, you know, start auctioning my work fairly regularly. And that was kind of just sort of, you know, knocked me down straight out of the gate. And so I'm looking for alternative ways to do that. If anybody can suggest to me an art auction platform, I highly, I thank you for that. I encourage that if you can help me out. But for now, I'm just kind of doing it guerrilla style, you know. So text me, contact me, message me on Twitter or anywhere to do the bidding. Today is the last day. It's currently at 300. And that's all. I just want to thank you once again. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day and rest of the weekend, and we'll see you on Imperium Art next week. Okay, and also see you on Hearth of Europa.
Thank you very much. It's been a very interesting stream. Been wonderful. Could indeed do it again. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's interesting.
Absolutely.
I don't actually look at visual art much. Music tends to be a lot more my thing, actually.
I see.
But I should look at more paintings.
Indeed.
Definitely.
And I'd be glad to do that with you. Okay. Thanks. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.